Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. Her name is Rosemary Olender. Mrs. Rose, how are you doing, ma?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Mrs. Rose. And also, thanks so much for the time and the opportunity, Mrs. Rose. Firstly, you are an author. You are also an education consultant. Can you please, Mrs. Rose, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mrs. Rose?
Okay. Well, my name is Rosemary Olender. I am an educator. I was a teacher and then a school administrator and then a director of special education and then a consultant. Now I'm on the fourth tier of my career. I've written a book, second book, and this one is called Coffee and Wisdom: A Father's Legacy to Leading a Rich Life. And it came about because the night before my father passed away, we were in the hospital and he said to me, I would like to apologize to you. Um, and I said, for what? And he said, for leaving you with nothing. And I said to him, I know you're sick, but are you crazy? What are you talking about? He was talking about material wealth. He was talking about the fact that at the point that he passed away, um, he did not have a large bank account to leave. He did not own our house. He did not have a brand new car, all of those things. And he felt that he had somehow not given us what we needed in our life. So what happened was a conversation ensued after he said that. And I explained to him the wealth of gifts that he had given my sister and I over the years that made us both very strong women and very successful and very happy in our lives. And they were all non material gifts. So that's kind of how the book is structured. It is structured around the practices that occurred in my house and with my family that let us know that it's not about things. It's not about having the best shoes or the best clothes, or it's really about the core values your family instills in you. And we came from a great family that had some wonderful values.
Mm. Firstly, my heart goes to your lovely father. And that shows that everything is not about the material things we see around us. There are more things more valuable than those material things. When he wanted to pass away, his belief was that, due to the material things I don't have, I feel like I am not in the position whereby I took care of you guys in the way that you guys wanted. But you guys saw the greatness in him. You guys saw every single thing he has done. And that shows that there are a lot of things more valuable than material things, like kindness, showing the sense of coming together, showing the kindness, care, showing them the right thing to do. When we are instructed to do the right thing with strictness or with kindness, those are the things that are also more valuable than those material things to also, make us to be a good person in life. So there are many things we need to understand in this type of area. I know you've discussed about your book, Coffee and Wisdom. But from the experience you've had, Mrs. Rose, I know this is the book you are still focusing on, but do you still think, or do you think you are planning to write more books in the coming future, Mrs. Rose?
It's a great question. At my age, I'm not sure. But there are certainly more values I have thought about since I've been out speaking about the 12 that I put in the book. Each chapter is a different gift, and I call each of those things a gift, like the gift of time, the gift of honesty and trust, the gift of humor, those kinds of things. Certainly, there are more of those, and I feel a little reticent that I didn't include my mother more, but this was really about my dad. And my mom was a whole different animal in terms of how she operated and what she did. She was a very tough trailblazer, where my father was more of an introspective, giving kind of person all the time. So maybe there is another book down the road. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe. But I want to get this one out there first.
Definitely, definitely. It shows that there are definitely more stories that are ahead, even from your lovely mother, where every single experience came from. Those things too are some things that people can also learn from. But focusing now, your father has been one of the things you've dedicated your writing to, which is very impactful in a very, very huge way. And that is why I would like to dive to our time currently. During our old times, 19s, during the 19th and the 18th, there were some things that we know that there were not much people who know about people. There were still people who are more having this kind of community, showing this kind of kindness and love. Now we're getting to a stage whereby we have developed, we see what is going on around us, and that's give the influence to parents. Many parents, I won't say all, many parents now believe that I have to take my child to one of the best schools. I have to take my child to one of the best things. I have to take my child to one of the best. Everything about my child has to just be the best. And that is why I would like to dive to this then, Mrs. Rose, because many parents just think giving to their kids everything they want is the best way they can make them to be comfortable and to just be financially okay as a kid so that they can be happy. So, what do you believe are one of the true riches children need that money can't buy on its own, Mrs. Rose?
They need really great modeling of quality values from their parents. You don't need money to leave a legacy. You just need love, your presence, not ENTS, but ENCE, your presence in their life and your wisdom. And you do that by modeling it, by showing it, by talking about it, by expressing it, by pointing it out when you see it in action in life. Um, the way I've set the book up is each chapter is about a particular gift or value that was shown us. And I've set the chapters up so that the first piece of it explains why that's so valuable for a child to become resilient and kind and strong and successful and happy. Um, and then I list a bunch of recollections and reflections back on my life with my dad, within my family, that represent that gift. And then the third piece of the chapter is suggestions for parents. Here are some things you can actually do to instill this gift, to give this gift to your children of all ages, from little kids all the way to your grown up adults. Um, your adult children, they can all learn from that. So I think one of the things I learned over the years and what made me really focus on this was that when I was in high school, I lived in a town that was very dichotomous. There were very, very wealthy families of business owners who had manufacturing, the steel mill, the copper mill, big, I'm talking about a lot of money. And they lived around the lake. And then there were the city kids like me, came from middle class and lower middle class families. It was very, it was, it was very different. But I was in classes mostly with the kids that came from the lake because I was bright and my guidance counselor felt I needed to be in advanced classes, and that's where I was. The interesting thing was my friends used to want to come to my house on the weekends and spend time with me and my family. When I got to college, same thing happened. My friends that I met from New York and from all different places would say, I'd like to go home for a weekend with you. Do you think we can make that happen? Because my father, one of the things he did was when I was in college, he would come to the college and he
Mm.
would take me out to lunch, but he would come and sit, and within minutes, there would be three, four, five of my friends sitting there with us, and he would sit for 2 hours and talk with them. And they just about school and about what they liked and what they didn't like and what they wanted to be. And if there was something making them unhappy, what could they do differently? He was he was a profound communicator. And this was a man who left school in 10th grade.
Wow.
He walked out of school and went and joined the Navy so he could fight in the war that killed his brother. And he was only 16 and he lied. And he said he was
Oh,
17 going on 18, and they took him without any proof. They just took him and he went. Um, but he was a master of observation and watching people and looking at circumstances and critically analyzing what he saw and what he wanted. And he was basically a very kind and non-judgmental man. He used to say, imagine if we could walk around with a billboard on our forehead that explained recent circumstances so that if we yelled at somebody and on our forehead it said, I just found out I have cancer, we might react differently to it. We don't know what people are coming in. So the gift of perspective and empathy was always right in the forefront there. I think that's the key. If and that's what I'm not seeing a lot of. And that's one of the reasons why I want to push this book, because I think if anything, we need these values talked about a lot right now. We need to start understanding that we are all different, but together we are so much stronger. And our stories and our backgrounds and our tales and our rituals combined would be magnificent. We could take ordinary moments and make them extraordinary.
Mm, thank you so much. And I completely agree with you with what you brought together because that shows that there is a lot of values we can bring out of our kids without the material things. And I also love the story from your lovely father. It shows that he has this kind of empathy, this kind of kindness, because for someone who went for a war and come back, have kids, come with his or her kids and just play with other kids and just show this kind of coming together to build this sense of strength within one another is very, very powerful on its own. And that shows, and that was why, a lot of people will come to you then. I want to come to your place. I want to come to your place because they see that happiness in you. They see that joy being in a family. Because many people, because the truth is, a lot of people, even kids now, are many of them are not really happy with the way probably the way that parents really take them up. Maybe it's because they are not really trained in that area, and that is why I agree that this thing is something we 100% need to let people know. These are things that they are little little things. We just need to know about it and know how we could take that action. Because these kids that were giving birth today, there's a way we take care of them so that by the time they grow to their old age, they won't get to a point whereby we won't even be able to control them anymore. That won't be good for us, and that will be good for the kids. So we have to know from little little things to build ourselves, and that is why I would like to drive to the point of things parents can do every day. I do know you've put a lot of things in your book, but generally, if you could just say some things that you feel like you know parents can instill in
What
kindness
what mhm.
and
What parents need to do
yes.
is they need to be really good active listeners. They have to pay attention. They have to pay attention to what their kids are saying, what they're doing, what they're seeing, what they're talking about, and and stay involved in that in a positive, happy way. You know, a lot of parents will talk about we have to use a lot of discipline. My father was a disciplinarian. He didn't carry a big stick. He did it with a feather. He did it with wanting us to make sure that we didn't disappoint him. I mean, I didn't worry about us getting angry. I worried about disappointing him because he was important to me. He let me know, and this is the thing parents need to do every day. They need to let their kids know that they value them. The behavior is separate. The behavior, they might not like their behavior, they may not like something they've done, but they value them. And you need to show your kids that all the time. Your kids can be your teachers too,
Mhm.
and you can show them their worth by going to them for things you might need that they might be able to afford. I mean, technology comes to my mind. I go to my grandchildren, I go to my kids, and I go, I'm an idiot with this. Help me, and talk to me about it. But I think parents need to be there and present and listening and observing very carefully what's going on and talk about it and point out stuff that is of your value. I'm not going to tell parents what their values should be.
Mm.
Everybody has their own values. But if your value is to show kindness to others, then as a parent, show kindness to others when your kids are with you.
mm,
There was one time I was with my mother in a grocery store, and there was an elderly woman who was really seemed very down and sad, and she was mumbling to herself over some vegetables in the produce department. And my mother went over to her, and my mother said, "Can I help you with something? You seem to be frustrated." And the woman said, "Well, I am, because I don't have a lot of money, and I'm supposed to eat really well, and I don't know what to do here because everything is so expensive." And my mother said, "Well, what is it you need?" And she explained to my mother that she needed her iron was low and she needed that. And my mother said, "Let me show you what you can do." Well, I walked away. A half hour later, my mother was still with her and filling her basket with the proper greens that would give her the iron she needed, and not expensive either. So, I wanted my mother to write a cookbook for people who didn't have a lot of money as a result of that. She never got around to doing that because she too took ill and died like a year after my dad. And they were both
mm,
young. But that's the kind of thing you show. I saw that. My parents, when I think about my parents, I see so many times, and there's a lot of examples in the book of my dad giving to people or not getting angry in situations that would have had me screaming. And my talking to him and saying, "How can you be nice to that man? He owed you all this money. He didn't give it back to you." And we
mm,
had a conversation about that. I can get angry. Is that going to get me my money any faster? No. I can be nice to him and I can say, "Look, I know you're falling on hard times. That's okay. I'll give you an extension." It made my mother crazy, but for my father, it was the thing to do. And that's so he was a model of all of this. I had a friend who said to me after she read the book, "You're right. I don't think I ever saw your father really angry." And I said, "No, he just looked at life from a different lens and said, why do you think that person did that? Why do you think they did that? Maybe this happened, maybe that happened. Um, I can choose to be really a pain to this person, or I can choose to be a support. Which do you think will get me a better return?" Those are the kinds of conversations we had. And those are the kinds of things parents need to do every day. Model it, show it, and recognize it in their children is the other thing they need to do. You see your kid playing nicely with a puppy, tell them, say, "Wow, I'm really proud of you for spending the time with the puppy and not getting mad because the puppy wouldn't do what you wanted it to do," or whatever. You know what I'm saying? To just
yes.
say, find the worth and let them know that it's there. Because and listen carefully, because if you don't listen to the small things your kids tell you, when they get older, get to be teenagers, they won't tell you anything. They won't tell you the big things you need to know. So I would say be present, observe, listen. Those are the three pillars of good parenting. The other thing parents need to understand is there's no such thing as perfect parenting. There's no such thing as giving your kids everything they need. It's not going to happen. That's where resilience comes in, you know? And my father would do that too. He would say, we, like I said, we came at times, my father, he just had a little business. We didn't have a lot of money. And there were times my father would say, "Well, what could we put together for dinner based on what we have in the house?" And my mom was a master at that. Or what could we get? One of the things this my mother told this elderly woman was sweet potatoes. They were very inexpensive. She said, "Sweet potatoes have all the nutrients you need. Here's 5 different ways you can make them." And my father would do that. My father would say, "Well, we can't exactly go and out to dinner because we don't have the money to do that as much as we
Mm,
would like to. But you know what? Let's take a ride and go get an ice cream together." And we would do that. And those are the things that filter in my mind, all the stories, all the memories of the beautiful moments that he was teaching me through example, of the things that were important, at least to him, and to what we felt. And I think probably resiliency, particularly in today's world, is a critical skill for kids to have because everything's changing so fast and you just get into doing something and the rug gets pulled out from under you. So let's talk about that. Okay, if it doesn't work out, what did you learn? What do we do? What could we do differently? Can
Mm.
we do a sidestep here? That kind of thing.
Thank you so much for this insight, Mrs. Rose. That shows that as parents, we don't just have to, we can't be perfect in the first place. We just need to learn to observe the kind of kids we have. When we observe the kind of kids we have, when we see the positive things, the good things they are doing around them, then you encourage them with it. We show it to them that we love them. We care about them with this kind of things they are doing. And we should also learn to listen to them. When we listen to them, let us digest it. Whether it is upsetting or not, let us digest it and know how we could talk to them and show that kind of empathy, assist them in one way or the other. But we need to observe the kind of kid we have so that we'll know when to, react, know what to tell them, and know what not as a parent. We can't be perfect, but we should try our best to work on these certain things which will really help us in a very, very long way. I would like to dive to one of the biggest things we have in our world today, social media. Social media has taken a lot of attention in our kids, in the teenagers today, because any teenager now that have a phone or any kid that have a phone, everything now goes through social media, which makes a lot of people now isolated in our time today. So for children who are in this sense of social media, in the fast-paced world where technology and social media are taking place, how do you think families can still try their best to protect and nurture the values that really matters in their kids, Mrs. Rose?
Well, the social media thing, I do address that a little bit in the book. It wasn't there when I was growing up. This is a relatively new phenomenon. So my father
Exactly.
did not have to deal with that. But he did have to deal with gossip, which is similar. Pay attention. Do you believe what you're hearing? Do you believe what you're seeing? Why? Why do you believe it? Why might it be kind of an exaggeration? Those kinds of things. Parents they definitely need to monitor the kids' social media. It makes me crazy that kids are on their devices so much and parents, aren't doing. Now, there are things to do. You can block certain sites, you can do all of that. But a lot of that is not happening. And more importantly, the kids know how to get around it. So we had some rules, and I still have some rules, even with my adult children. If they come here and we're having dinner, which we do frequently because that's one of our rituals,
Mm.
phones get put away unless you're taking a picture. And you can take the picture, but you're not to be texting, you're not at the table. I took my daughter to lunch one day and my grandson, and we went to lunch, and she took out her phone, and I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Well, I just got it." I said, "No, put it down. If you're going to be on that device, you're going to pay the bill because I didn't come to take you to lunch for you to text people. Put it away." And that's what we did. Um, but that means parents need to do that too. I went to a restaurant one time and there was a mom who came in with two toddlers on the phone. 20 minutes later, she was still on the phone, and the two kids are yelling, "Mommy, mommy, mommy." That makes me crazy. I got up, I went over to the table. I said, "Excuse me, would you like me to play with your kids while you have this important phone call?" And she looked at me and she goes, "Well," I said, "Well, I'm a teacher. I'd be very happy to sit with them and color, and that way you don't have to be distracted." And all the way I'm thinking, "Get off the phone." And she said, "No, she said, "I have to go." And she got off. She goes, "I'm fine." I said, "Okay." And I went back and sat down. Now, I don't know if that would work today. This was a few years ago, but who knows? But we need to, it may when kids are sitting in my living room and they're on the phone and they're texting each other across the thing,
Mm.
it makes me crazy. So I think we have to monitor how much they are. I mean, there are parents who have there's amounts of time. Now, here's the thing with social media. There is a situation in the book that I talk about where my father disciplined me for something I did when I was a teenager, and I had a boyfriend. We didn't have social media, but we had telephones. And he basically said to me, "Okay, why did you do this? I understand why you did it. I don't like it and all of that. But, here's the deal. You don't use the phone for 2 weeks. That was a death sentence to me. This was my boyfriend. And it was, 2 weeks. And he did not let up. 13 days later, I said, Dad, he goes, tomorrow. So I think use their, in a kind way, not in a mean way, but just say, hey, if you're not going, if your room isn't cleaned, you're not going to have your phone for a day. Your choice. You can clean your room or I can take your phone. That is one of the best behavioral tactics to use. You give your kids two choices. One you want, one they don't. And you get what you want most of the time. And you start when they're young so
Yes.
that by the time they're older and you mean business and you don't go back on what you say. They can trust what you say and take. I used to say, when my father said something, I could take it to the bank because it stuck, no matter what. And he did it with a smile on his face. He didn't yell at me. He never touched me. He never hit me, any of that. So I think it's just a matter of monitoring the social media, making sure your kids aren't getting into trouble, and let them know that if you see something you don't approve of, or you are worried about or scared about, you will stick your nose in because that's your job as a parent. I have my adult kids say to me, Mom, you can't tell me what to do. And I say, oh, but I can. I'm your mother. That's my job. Until the day I die or you're gone, I get to do this. Don't try to change me.
That is very beautiful. That shows that as a parent, we have to know our ground. We have to stand our ground in some circumstances with our kids. Because this kid at time, by the time we float and we are not standing on our ground, they will believe that, well, my mom said this, but I know she's going to change her mind. Or my dad said this, I know he's going to change it. We have to stand on our ground. We have to use the social media and the phone they have as a tool to say, you have to do this. You have a lot of books you have to read. You have to read this book. If you do not read this book, this phone is not going to get with you for 1 to 2 weeks. I know they will never even want that to happen. They will want to check on that book because they know there are a lot of advantages they're having in it. It is a very, very beautiful way to capture our kid to make them. And also, I love what you said. We have to try our best too, as parents, to make sure that our children, anything that they are not comfortable with, so on social media or something they feel very worried about, they could be able to say it. Mom, Dad, I saw something like this on social media. What do you think about it? They are very important so that we could be able to caution them and let them know, no, this is wrong. No, this is right. Because sometimes they promote some things that are not meant to be promoted sometimes. And those are the things that kids have to try their best to open up to their parents and try their best to tell their parents, Mom, Dad, I see something like this. Those are tools that we think are very, very necessary. But that's a best way that we know that kids, they really, really love. When they see something they see that is very playful, they will not want to leave it. And we can use that as a tool to let them do the right thing at the right time, let them to stay away from something that could cause them serious damage in their life. It's something that is really, really great and very, very helpful. Thank you so much, Mrs. Rose. You want to say
Yeah.
something?
My father started very early in my life asking me how my day was at night. We would sit at night and have coffee, hence the name Coffee and Wisdom. That was our ritual. Every night we would sit at a kitchen table and have cookies and coffee and talk right until the day he died. We talked on the phone and had coffee in our hand. Um, but he would say, how was your day? Did anything happen that really excited you, made you happy, or that you learned that was an aha moment? Did anything happen that upset you? And so by the time I got to eighth grade, when girls were writing in those days, they didn't have social media, they weren't texting, but they were writing nasty notes about you and trying to bully you and stuff.
Mm.
I would say to him, look at this note I got. And he would read it and he'd say, well, what do you think about that? What do you think about the person who sent it? And again, we would talk about it and analyze it. So I was never, ever afraid to tell my father anything.
That's
Anything.
it.
And that's what you want from your kids. You
That's
want them
beautiful.
to be so comfortable. And that's trust. And there's a chapter in the book on the gift of trust.
Mm.
And all of this is about trust. I could trust my father to keep his word, whether it was to discipline me for 2 weeks or it was, I will take you here. We went. He would move mountains to make it happen so he didn't go back on his word. And he would say, your word is your trust. And if
Yes.
you break that, you break trust with people. And if you do that, you lose friends, you lose family. You do not want to do that.
Completely agree, Mrs. Rose. We do not want to get to a point whereby we want to make our kids to be uncomfortable talking to us about some certain things. They
Right.
have to be 100% comfortable to bring out themselves, open up, and see what is going on around their surroundings. It is very, even most of the time where a lot of things happen, where phone can just bring out. It is very important for us to make our kids to be free with us so that they can, and it takes trust. I agree, it takes a lot of trust. Thank you so much, Mrs. Rose, for the beautiful insight regarding your book and also the insight you've brought from parenting as a person. There is also a question I normally ask during the end of the show, Mrs. Rose. From our forefathers, from our ancestors, there are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mrs. Rose, what do you think that thing would be, Mrs. Rose?
That's a great question. What would I bring back? I think if there was anything I would bring back, I mean, I think about my ancestors.
Mm,
They were all immigrants. They were all immigrants and came from Italy
mm,
and through hard times to get here. I would bring back the storytelling that used to go on in families and make sure that you, you know, it, I'm lucky because I have a family and I grew up with my grandmother, so I had some of the stories, and I had a lot of stories from my one grandfather.
mhm,
But I would bring back the multi generational unit of the family and make sure that um, they are so much a part of your kids' lives. If they're not physically there, they're there through the storytelling that anybody who knew them can tell, whether it's a friend or, a cousin or somebody to say, tell them about your grandmother. The food you cook, use the recipes from your culture, bring that all in and show how important that all is, because it is incredibly rooting for a kid. It grounds kids to have rituals and traditions. We had a tradition that was a hard and fast rule that Christmas Eve, Italians celebrate the seven fishes dinner at Christmas Eve, which is just a big feast of all fish. And we used to have the entire family, 20 something people. And my father drilled into us, and we did it every single year, Christmas Eve. And he would
yeah.
say, you can go and live anywhere in the world you want to live, doesn't matter where. However, Christmas Eve, you will be in this house with this family. You make sure you work all year to have the money to get here. If you're in Japan, you come back. And I remember saying to him, why, Dad? I mean, it's just one night. And he said, it's one night that the family can be together. And the reality is, 1 year from now, you don't know who's going to be missing from the table. You need to be here now and say what you need to say to everybody, because you don't know if grandma will be here next year, if I'll be here next year. So we will keep this tradition. And after he and my mom passed, it passed to me to kind of pull that together because it was always at my house. And I've tried over the years and people have left and everything, but we still do it. We might not do it on Christmas Eve, but we still do a big seven fishes dinner with family and the friends who we consider family. Because, family, you have the family you're born with and you have the family you choose. And we have friends, and our godparents to our children were always friends who we wanted to be family. And we felt that would keep them in the family. So it's important to do that and have those stories. I would bring all of that back, even as widespread as we are, even if we did it through Zoom meetings now. We could do it through social media and have the whole family there and share, They don't have to be physically there, but stay in touch because their stories are key. And their stories are what made, you know, Tennyson said, I am a part of all that I have met.
Mm,
And that is so true. I am a result of my grandparents, my great grandparents, my uncles, my aunts, my father, my mother, everybody, friends that have been in our family, places
mm,
I've gone. So I think it's important that we stay connected. The connection is key for sure. And then the last thing I would tell you is the best teacher is the person who can convince a kid that they can be and do anything they want to be and do. And that is critical. And when resiliency studies were done, it was proven that all a child needs is one significant adult in their life to convince them that they can do something better, they can do what they want to do, they can be what they want to be. 87% of the time, that's a teacher. It should be more parents. It should be flipped. 87% of the time, it should be a parents. Because as a parent, you are your child's teachers. And from the minute they're born, you are their teacher, or even before they're born. We've got people playing music to pregnant ladies. I mean, you are the teacher. And it is critical that you understand that and you be the teacher all the time. It's a daunting
True.
task and it's a journey. It's a journey being a parent. And it's not always happy or fun or successful, but you just keep plugging away. You just keep trying. Take a risk, as my dad would say. Positive risk taking is incredible.
Goes with a lot of sacrifice. As a parent, we can't be perfect, but it goes with a lot of sacrifice. And those are the things that we need to just have to do so that we can have kids that we will be proud of. We can have kids that will be happy about. We can have kids that we can tell our friends, we can tell a lot of people about. And that is the joy of a parent, having a kids that they can bring out and they could say, this is my children. There is nothing more beautiful than that. And also stories. There are a lot of stories from our ancestors, from our families that we think we can carry on together. I just think connecting with each other is very beautiful because that shows the sense of healing, because that is when we can show that we are there for each other no matter how things are going to be hard, how things are going to be tough. So these are beautiful, beautiful things that we hope that continues to stay alive because family is very important. There is no way, I don't know how to do, but family is one of the things that is very important in our life, and we have to continue to value that family no matter how it is, no matter how the technology has dominated a lot of things. We have to continue to grow our family and stay connected with each other. I also want to use this opportunity, Mrs. Rose, for taking this time to speak about parenting, how we can take care of our children, because these are the things that we need to know in our time currently. I also want to thank you for the opportunity you've given to me, Mrs. Rose. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Oh, you're welcome. This has been great.
All right. Have a wonderful day, Mrs. Rose. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.